Hello, this is Boomer Rocks. I have a special treat for you today. I have remastered 3 radio plays from the mid-1940s featuring the legendary Basil Rathbone as Sherlock Holmes and Nigel Bruce as his trusty friend and colleague, Dr. Watson. These 30-minute radio plays were done in the mid-1940s after Rathbone and Bruce had finished their Sherlock Holmes film series for Universal Pictures. They continued to play these characters on radio for a couple of years until Rathbone tired of the Sherlock Holmes character and wanted to move on and do other things. They did offer Nigel Bruce the opportunity to continue to do these radio play series without Rathbone, but he declined, saying that he would only do the series if Rathbone was involved. The very first one up today is a holiday-themed one which pits Sherlock Holmes against his arch-nemesis, Professor Moriarty. This is a nice little mystery featuring multiple Santa Clauses and a bag of very expensive gifts. Please enjoy The Night Before Christmas.
This episode from the life of Sherlock Holmes will be transmitted to our men and women overseas by shortwave and through the worldwide facilities of the Armed Forces Radio Service. Petri Wine brings you Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce, the new adventures of Sherlock Holmes. The Petri family, the family that took time to bring you good wine, invite you to listen to Dr. Watson tell us another exciting adventure he shared with his old friend, that master detective, Sherlock Holmes. Well, right about now, you're probably taking a little breather in your last-minute rush to get everything ready for the big day tomorrow. Children have to be put to bed to wait for Santa Claus, and there's the tree waiting to be decorated, and 4,000,001 things which must be done before morning. I sure hope you got all your Christmas shopping done. It's pretty hectic rushing off at the last minute to take care of Uncle Charlie or Aunt Bertha or Cousin Sam. But if you must get something, just remember that you can always dash over to your wine merchant and get a bottle or two of Petri wine. Or better yet, a whole case of Petri wine. Petri wine's a swell gift, and I just thought a little last-minute suggestion might be of some help. And now I'm sure our good friend Dr. Watson's waiting for us, so let's go in and join him.
Come in. Ah, there you are, Mr. Bartell.
Oh, say, Doctor, I can see you're going to have yourself quite a Christmas. Big tree in the corner with colored lights on it. Where'd you get those? Table covered with presents? You must be mighty popular.
They aren't all for me, my boy. You see, I'm having a Christmas party tomorrow for my housekeeper's little nieces.
Oh.
I'm going to dress up as Santa Claus for them.
Well, I'm sure you look very convincing in the part. Oh, by the way, Doctor, I brought you a little present.
Ooh, really?
Here it is. I hope you'll like it.
No, Mr. Bartell, I got one for you, too, here, Summer. Oh, you mustn't open it until tomorrow. Here you are, my boy.
Thanks a lot, Doctor. And now, how's about tonight's story? Last week, you told us you'd chosen an adventure with a lot of Christmassy atmosphere.
Yes, Mr. Bartell. My story begins on another Christmas Eve many years ago. To be exact, in 1886. The time the adventure occurred, I must confess I didn't quite understand what was going on myself. In fact, I never did quite make head or tails of it until Holmes took pity on me later and explained the whole thing. But I shan't try to confuse you, Mr. Bartell. I'll tell you the story exactly as it happened.
Right you are, Doctor. Let's go.
Very well. On that Christmas Eve in 86, I was standing in our Baker Street rooms, dressed in the costume of Santa Claus. Holmes, his long, thin fingers pressed together, lay back in an armchair and gazed at me quizzically, while our housekeeper, Mrs. Hudson, stood by the door and...
Dr. Watson, you make a grand Santa Claus.
Doesn't he, Mrs. Hudson? The beard on, Watson, old chap.
I'm afraid it's going to be a little uncomfortable. How does it look?
Oh, you look just like the old man on the Christmas cards, Doctor.
Yes, Watson. It really becomes you. The cheery twinkle of the eyes, the ruddy complexion, and the appropriate girth. What a shame we can't obtain some snow and a sleigh and reindeer for you. However, I'm sure Mrs. Hudson's nieces will be very much impressed.
Oh, they will that, sir. And it's very kind of you, Doctor, to offer to come over to their house with me. With her father in the hospital and my sister at his bedside, it would have been a very miserable Christmas without you.
Oh, I shall enjoy myself, but I think I'll take this beard off before we get there. That's it. Are you ready to leave, Mrs. Hudson?
I am, sir. Will I get a cab?
How far do we have to go?
Oh, Lexington Gardens, number 28. It's just off the Edgware Road, Doctor.
Not far, but bearing in mind my costume, I suppose we'd better take a cab.
Aye, sir. I'll get one.
Holmes, what are you going to do with yourself? I hate leaving you alone on Christmas Eve.
Oh, don't worry, old chap. I shall spend a profitable evening writing on my new monograph.
Well, what's this one about?
An analysis of teeth marks on pipe stems, with particular regard to indicated character.
Oh, gracious me, how exciting. Well, I must be going.
Don't forget your sack of presents, old fellow.
Great Scott, no.
When you come to distribute them, you'll find that I took the liberty of adding a few trinkets on my own behalf.
Oh, that's very thoughtful of you, Holmes.
Oh, excuse me, Mr. Holmes, but there's a gentleman to see you. Says he's an old friend of yours. Here's his card, sir.
Oh, thank you. Oh, it's Lord Whitcomb. Splendid. Ask him to come up, please, Mrs. Hudson.
All right, sir.
And I hope your party is a great success, Mrs. Hudson.
Thank you, sir. Are you sure you don't want me to stay? Now that you have a visitor.
Oh, no. Indeed, no, Mrs. Hudson. I can show the gentleman out myself. You go off and have a good time.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, I wonder what Lord William wants. Perhaps I should stay.
No, please, my dear fellow, certainly not.
What?
You've far more important work to do. Whitcomb probably wants his revenge at chess. Or something equally innocuous. Off with you, my dear fellow, and enjoy yourself.
Oh, I suppose I'd better go. Just the same, I wish you were coming with me. I'll see you later.
I shall be there. Come on up, Whitcomb.
Hello, Holmes. Evening, Watson. You make a very convincing Santa Claus. Are you leaving?
I'm afraid so, Lord Whitcomb.
Well, good night, then.
Good night.
How are you, Holmes? All alone on Christmas Eve, eh?
Yes, Whitcomb, I'm glad you came over to see me. Mm-hmm. What's it to be, an evening of chess, or have you unearthed some recent treasure of medieval pottery that we can discuss?
Neither, Holmes. I've come to you in your professional capacity. I need help.
Oh, come now, Whitcomb. Don't tell me that after all these years of quiet friendship, you're going to become a client.
I'm afraid so, Holmes. Though I doubt if my problem will interest you very much. It's hardly up to your rather colourful standards. Care for a cigar?
Oh, thanks. Well, now, my dear Whitcomb, what's your trouble?
Well, I decided this year to have a little Christmas party at my townhouse. I'm quite comfortably off, as you know, and it occurred to me that I have several relatives and friends who are not as well off. I'm having a party for them tonight, Holmes, and I hope you'd attend it, disguised as Santa Claus.
Oh, my dear fellow, I've adopted many disguises in my time, but Father Christmas has never been one of them. Why do you want me to attend your party in disguise in any case? You ashamed of your friendship with a private detective, or do you consider my features more acceptable when buried beneath the depths of a snowy beard?
Oh, my dear Holmes, do take me seriously. I'm not joking, I assure you.
Of course you're not. You want me to attend your party in disguise. Why?
I'm giving some very valuable presents, diamond and onyx cufflinks, platinum and ruby earrings, and such like. And I've wrapped each of the presents in banknotes.
Dear me. Where are these presents now?
In a sack, in charge of my butler. I was going to dress up as Santa Claus and give them out myself, until I got the warning letter. That's why I've come to you.
Warning letter, eh?
Yes, I received it by this evening's post. Listen to this. My dear Lord Whitcomb, your generosity with Christmas presents borders on ostentation. We do not approve. Either we receive £5,000 in sovereigns at Post Restaurant Box 379 by 6 o'clock on Christmas Eve, or I'm afraid your Christmas party will be conspicuous by its absence of presents.
Let me see that note, Whitcomb, will you?
Yes, here you are.
Thanks. Plain paper, torn from a penny notebook. The writing is obviously disguised. By George, yes. Whitcomb, I accept the case. I'll come with you to your party at once, and furthermore, I shall follow your suggestion regarding a disguise. Dressed as Santa Claus, I shall be less likely to attract suspicion.
I'm delighted, Holmes. But what made you decide so suddenly?
This writing, my dear fellow, this writing. Oh, it's in a false hand. I'd know that characteristic M in my dear Whitcomb. I've seen it too often at the beginning of a signature. Moriarty.
Moriarty? Who's he?
Oh, one of the cleverest and most unscrupulous criminals in England. Whitcomb, there's no time to be lost. Let me see now. 6:30. Half an hour beyond the deadline given you in this letter. We must go to your house at once.
This is as far as the cab can take us, Doctor.
Oh, here you are, cabby. Here's 5 shillings for you and a Merry Christmas.
Oh, bless you, Jim, and a Merry Christmas to you, too.
You said you wanted to get into the house through the back way so that you could surprise the children.
Yes, I thought
Well,
I'd them to come down the kitchen chimney.
Oh, you can get to the back of the house by going up the alley here. I'll go in the front door.
Splendid, Mrs. Hudson. Which is the house?
Number 28. It's the third one down the alley, Doctor. I'll have the back window open in no time, and you can slip in without any of the bairns seeing.
Very well. Gloomy little street, I must say. Hello. Where's the music coming from?
Oh, it's from that temple across the street, Doctor. The disciples of the octagonal square, they call themselves.
What on earth do you suppose that means?
Oh, some newfangled cult. Heathens, most likely.
Hello. I'm not the only Santa Claus abroad tonight. Look at that fellow across the street over there.
Oh, dressed just like yourself, Doctor, and carrying a sack, too. Oh, he's running up the steps to the temple.
Great Scott, he slipped on the ice. Oh, I wonder what his hurry was. Here, my man.
Oh,
Let
be
me help you
careful
up,
now,
sir.
Doctor. Don't trip for yourself.
Here you are, sir. Now, give me a hand.
Thank you, sir. Telly of me, what's in it?
We Santa Clauses have to help each other, you know. Up you come. That's it. Woo! Gracious me.
Doctor, I told you to be careful.
Oh.
Now you've fallen, too.
Oh, it's this confounded red coat of mine. It tripped me up.
Did you hurt yourself, sir?
No. I'm all right, I think. How about you, sir?
Well, I'm all right, thanks. Silly of me to run, wasn't it?
Here's your sack, sir.
Thank you. Good night and Merry Christmas.
Same to you, sir. Same to you. Oh, he went into the temple. Must be a disciple of the octagonal square.
You're sure you're no hurt, Doctor?
No, of course not, Mrs. Hudson. Give me my sack, please. Thank you. Your sister's house is the third one down this alleyway, you say?
I'll hurry and open the back window.
Yes, I'll be waiting for you, Mrs. Hudson. This is rather fun. What a shame Holmes isn't with us. Well, he's probably happier having a good game of chess with Lord Whitcomb.
This is my house, Holmes. Number 39.
39 Francis Square, eh? And dear old Watson is just around the corner in Lexington Gardens and hasn't any idea that I've left Baker Street.
Yes, here you are, Caddy.
Thank you, sir. Merry Christmas, sir.
Isn't bad. Carol singers.
Yes, we'll probably have our fill of them before this evening's over.
Good evening, my lord.
Have the guests arrived, Hargreave?
Most of them, sir. They're in the library. You brought another Santa Claus with you, I see, my lord.
Another Santa Claus? What do you mean?
The gentleman arrived 3/4 of an hour ago, sir, dressed as Santa Claus. I took him to your study, my lord, and showed him the sack of presents.
Confound it! It's got here before us. Where's this study?
This way.
I hope I didn't do wrong, my lord. You told me that a gentleman dressed as Santa Claus would be coming here. Dear me. The gentleman appears to have gone.
Yes, and the sack containing the presents with him.
But he can't have left the house, my lord. I've been watching the front door.
Yes, and while you were doing that, he slipped out through the window here. The catch is undone. Hargrave, describe this man.
I can't tell you much about his appearance, I'm afraid, sir. He was dressed as Santa Claus, just like yourself. But I did notice one thing about him, sir.
Oh, what was that?
He lisped, sir. It was quite pronounced.
Of course. Lou the Lisper.
Who on earth is Lou the Lisper?
One of Moriarty's most trusted accomplices. Fortunately, though, I've had news of him lately through my underworld grapevine.
You know where he lives?
He is reputed to have some connections with a new cult that calls themselves the Disciples of the Octagonal Square. Their headquarters are just around the corner from here.
Let's go there at once.
Of course, and Hargrave.
Yes, sir.
Get a message to Scotland Yard as fast as you can. Ask for Inspector Lestrade and tell him to join me at the Temple of the Octagonal Square in Lexington Gardens as soon as possible.
Oh, the children are awful excited, Doctor. I told them you just came down the chimney.
I'll strip the beard on and then I'll go into him. There we are.
Will I announce you, Doctor?
Yes, yes, please, Mrs. Hudson.
All right, sir. Now, children, quiet. Santa Claus has come to see you, and he's brought you all presents.
Hello, children.
Hello, Santa Claus. My name's Elsie. Did you bring me a present?
Why, I did, Elsie. I'll look in my sack in a minute. And, what's your name, young man?
Herbert, they call me Bertie. Did you come down the chimney?
Yes, Bertie.
I bet you had a time doing it. You're so fat.
Oh, don't be rude, Bertie, or Santa Claus won't give you your present.
And what's your name, little man?
Lionel. I've got a cold.
Yes, I see you have. Well, children, gather round me and I'll see what presents I got for you.
Let me say first, me.
The first present is for... I'll be right. It says for Her Grace, the Dowager Duchess of Bewley.
Oh, do you suppose Mr. Holmes has been playing a practical joke on you, Doctor?
I suppose so, well, I can't see the point myself. But he did say that he'd added a few trinkets of his own.
I want my present.
Then supposing you take this, Elsie.
Ooh, thank you.
And this one is marked for the Reverend Arthur Carter. Tell you what Holmes is up to. Here you are, Bertie.
Cool, thanks.
And this is for you, Lionel, because you've been a good little boy.
Isn't very big, is it? I wanted the dog.
Wanted the dog, well, I'll bring you a dog next year, Lionel.
Oh,
Dr. Watson.
Yes, Mrs. Hudson?
Oh, look at the wrapping on these presents, Doctor. They're 20-pound notes.
Cut.
Oh, cool. Look what I got.
Now, let me see. Why, cufflinks and
Doctor,
diamond and onyx
what's wrong?
ones, unless I'm very much mistaken.
I got pretty earrings. Look how they sparkle.
Let me see, Elsie. Good gracious, I swear that these are platinum and rubies. What in thunder's going on?
I want my earrings back. Give me back mine, too.
Well, here you are, here you are.
Dr. Watson, what do you suppose has happened?
I don't know, Mrs. Hudson. Perhaps my toys are still at the bottom of the sack. I can't understand it. I wish Holmes were here instead of dozing in front of our fire in Baker Street.
Where are you, Holmes?
Here by the bed. This is the only room in the temple that gives any signs of having been lived in. I think our bird has been here, but I'm afraid he's flown. Should Inspector Lestrade will get here. Strike a match, will you, Whitcomb?
Right. Here's a candle on the table.
Oh, just as I feared. Look on the bed.
A red coat and a beard.
Yes, Lou the Lisper has discarded his disguise and gone, and with him, I'm afraid, your valuable presents.
Oh, wait a minute. Here's a sack lying on the floor. Oh, no, this isn't mine. Look what's in it. A toy dog, large box of chocolates, little girl's doll.
What in thunder? Well, this is Watson's sack.
But how on earth could Lou the Lisper have got hold of it?
Somewhere, somehow, he and Watson must have made an accidental change, and Lou the Lisper is no doubt trying to track Watson down at this very moment. You must work fast, Whitcomb, or my friend's life and those of Mrs. Hudson and her relatives won't be worth a tinker's dam.
Oh, now, Doctor, you can't break off your story there.
Oh, yes, I can, my boy. Before I go on, I thought we'd have a glass of port just to freshen us up.
Oh, well, that's something different. Of course. Instead of talking about port, as I sometimes do, it'll be nice to drink some for a change.
There you are, my boy, and a Merry Christmas to you.
The same to you. And now, what happened next, Doctor? We left you at the children's Christmas party, and Sherlock Holmes and Lord Whitcomb around the corner at the Temple of the Octagonal Square.
Yes, Mr. I tell, although at the time, of course, I had no idea what was going on. There I was, cheerfully handing out gifts worth, well, if not a king's, at least a baronet's ransom. While outside the temple of the octagonal square, Holmes and Lord Widdicombe were talking to Inspector Lestrade of Scotland Yard.
Yeah, seems to me, Lord Widdicombe, you'd have been wiser to get in touch with Scotland Yard when you first got the warning note. We could have nabbed him when he came to your house and pinched the sack of presents.
Lestrade, this is no time for post-mortems. We've got to reach Lou the Lisper before he finds Dr. Watson.
Do you suppose he can do that, Holmes?
It wouldn't be difficult. Lou the Lisper is nearly as clever as his master, Professor Moriarty. The chances are that you were followed when you came to Baker Street tonight, Widdicombe, and it's equally likely that Watson and Mrs. Hudson were followed as they left it. Moriarty seldom leaves anything to chance.
Well, where did Dr. Watson go tonight?
28 Lexington Gardens. It's just around the corner from here.
Well, then let's go there at once.
Fight not quarry away. No, Lestrade. We must use a little subtlety. Now, Lou the Lisper wishes to recover that sack of presents from Watson. How would he invade the party with the least possible trouble?
By dressing up as Santa Claus again?
No, I think he's overplayed that role for one evening.
Well, then how would he try to get in, Mr. Holmes?
Oh, come now, Lestrade. What group of people can enter any house on Christmas Eve without invitation and without creating suspicion?
The carols.
Exactly, my dear fellow. I shouldn't be at all surprised if at this very moment Lou the Lisper and some of his gang are singing carols outside 28 Lexington Gardens.
Well, then what are we going to do?
Form a rival choral society. How many of your men did you bring with you?
3. A sergeant and 2 constables.
Wearing greatcoats?
Yes, Mr. Holmes. But why?
Good. They can hide their helmets and pretend to be singers. Come on. Let's go over there, and while we're walking, we'll rehearse our carols. We must appear reasonably convincing. Sound your A, Lestrade. Sound your A.
For a ride at your back, Santa Claus?
No, you mustn't make Santa Claus too tired, love.
Oh, that's all right, Mrs. Hudson. Hop on, Lal, hop on.
Oh, they're singing carols outside the
Isn't that
door.
nice?
They come inside and sing for us, Santa
Yes, of course they can. Ask them to come in, Mrs. Hudson, will you?
All right, sir.
Oh, come on, let me get on your back, too.
Oh, now, take it easy. Oh, there we go.
I want to see your reindeer, Santa.
See my reindeer? Oh, up on the roof.
I'll climb up and see him.
No, you mustn't do that. They're asleep. Oh, here are the carol singers. Off you get, children. There we go. That's it now. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, and Merry Christmas.
Would you like to sing some carols for the children? After that, I'm sure you'd like a drop of something to warm you up.
Oh, thank you, sir. We should like that.
Haven't I met you before somewhere, my man?
No, sir, I'm sure you haven't. Come on, man, let's sing Good King Wenceslas.
Good King Wenceslas looked out on the feast of Stephen. Well, here we are outside the house, Mr. Holmes. Now watch.
Listen. Lou the Lisper and his men are already there.
Are we going in now?
In a moment. Now, men, you will have your truncheons handy?
Yes, Mr. Holmes, we're ready.
Splendid. Now, remember, when we're inside and I yell Merry Christmas at the top of my voice, you bring out your truncheons and get Lou the Lisper and his gang out of there as quickly as possible. Don't arrest them until you get them outside again, Lestrade. I don't want to frighten the children.
Right you are, Mr. Holmes. We're ready. Just give us the word and we'll go in and get them.
That was very nice singing. And now, how about something to warm you all up?
That won't be necessary, Dr. Watson. See to the door, Sammy. Now, all of you, stay right where you are.
Who are you? What do you think you're up to?
Please don't be difficult, Doctor. All I want is the jewels out of my sack that you stole from me tonight. If you try and stop me, I shall have to hurt you.
Why do you talk so funny? You got a cold like me?
Shut up. Now, Doctor, where are the jewels? Oh, curse it! There are some more carol singers outside.
Want them to go away, Lou?
No, better let them come in. If we don't, they might get suspicious.
All right, Lou. I should know what you're up to.
Now, no tricks, Doctor. If you try and give an alarm, I shall have to get rough with
I
you.
don't mind about that, but just remember that there are children present.
Oh, there, matey. You over here before you, eh? What you say? We all join a little carol for the nippers, eh?
All right. What do you want to sing?
Off the little angels sing, eh?
All right. Come on, men. Let's sing.
Off the angels sing, glory to the newborn King.
Merry Christmas!
Dr. Watson, what's happening? They're all hitting each other with truncheons.
Here, you can't do that. They're all going away. They're dragging each other out. Hey, come back here.
Oh, it's terrible.
Holmes, what in fun is going on?
I'll explain it to you later, old chap. Lestrade!
Yes, Mr. Holmes?
Take them to Scotland Yard and prefer charges. I'll be over in a little while and give evidence.
Right you are, sir. Too bad we didn't catch Professor Moriarty, too.
Well, at least we have some of his cohorts. I'll see you later,
I
Lestrade.
wish I knew what was going on here. Is Moriarty mixed up in this business?
Yes, Watson. I'll tell you all about it as soon as I've straightened this thing out. Now, Whitcomb,
Yes, Holmes.
the 20-pound notes that you used as wrapping for your gift seem to have been scattered all over the house. Do you want me to recover them, too?
No. From what you've told me of the children, I think their parents could use the money much more profitably than my relatives. In any case, I can replace it.
A very generous Christmas gift. Well, children, did you enjoy the little game we staged for you?
It wasn't our fun.
Yes, I nearly died laughing when they started hitting each other.
I'm glad you enjoyed it, children. And now I want you to show me the presents you received.
I got these pretty earrings.
Oh, they were a part of the game, too. A nice little girl like you doesn't want silly earrings, Elsie. Here's a beautiful doll for you.
Ooh, her eyes open and shut and everything.
And what did you get, my little man?
These.
Oh, cufflinks. Good gracious, who wants cufflinks when he can have a clockwork train? You want to exchange?
Praise the Lord, love a duck, yes.
I wanted the dog.
There's one for you, Lionel. A nice woolly dog.
Oh, good.
And here's a
Lovely.
Here you are, children. Here's a nice big box of chocolates, too. You can all share them.
Oh, Lummy, what a night. I ain't had as much fun since Granny got her finger stuck in a plug-o.
I still don't understand what's going on, Holmes, but I must say this has all the earmarks of being a happy Christmas.
Yes, Mrs. Hudson.
Hi, Mr. Holmes.
How's the turkey coming along?
Oh, it'll be ready in a few minutes, Mr. Holmes.
Splendid. And while we're waiting, perhaps the children will oblige with something we haven't heard so far this evening.
Yes, I know what you mean. A Christmas carol that really sounds convincing. How about it, children?
All right, sir. Come on, Elsie. Come on, Lionel.
Well, Doctor, that was really a swell story. On a Christmas Eve like this, do you ever wish you were back in Baker Street celebrating Christmas there?
Times, yes, but actually, Mr. Bartell, I'm very happy right here in my little home. There on the table is a beautiful little Christmas tree. There's a fine fire in my fireplace. My two dogs, Monty and Willie, are sleeping peacefully at my feet. And best of it all, I've got the love of every child in the neighborhood. Yes, I got a great deal this Christmas Eve. Lots to be thankful for. And what with the troubles of the world on their way to being settled, it looks as if this is the brightest Christmas that I've ever had.
Well, that's how I feel about it, too, Doctor.
I hope that all our friends listening in are just as happy this Christmas Eve as we are. And speaking not only for myself, but I know for all of us and for the Petrie family, too, we wish every one of you a happy Christmas from the bottom of our hearts. God rest ye merry, gentlemen.
Well, Dr. Watson, next Monday is New Year's Eve. What story do you plan to tell us?
One that I think you will find extremely appropriate, Mr. Bartell. It takes place in a Scottish castle near Edinburgh on a New Year's Eve in 1900 and concerns a pair of lovers, an elderly baronet, and a strange iron box that proved to be more than worth its weight in gold.
Tonight's Sherlock Holmes adventure was written by Dennis Green and Anthony Boucher and was suggested by an incident in the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle story, The Adventure of the Blue Carbuncle. Music is by Dean Fostler. Mr. Rathbone appears through the courtesy of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer and Mr. Bruce through the courtesy of Universal Pictures, where they are now starring in the Sherlock Holmes series. Petri Wine Company of San Francisco, California, invites you to tune in again next week, same time, same station. Sherlock Holmes comes to you from our Hollywood studios. This is Harry Bartell saying goodnight for the Petri family. For a solid hour of exciting mystery dramas, listen every Monday on most of these same stations at 8 o'clock to Michael Shayne, followed immediately by Sherlock Holmes. This is the Mutual Broadcasting System.
Now, wasn't that just wonderful with Sherlock Holmes in a very Christmassy spirit story? Next up takes Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson to Edinburgh, Scotland, with some disappearing family gold in The Strange Case of the Iron Box.
Good evening, Doctor.
Good evening, Mr. Bartell. Draw up your usual chair.
Thank you.
That's it. Well, did you enjoy the Christmas holidays?
Well, I've had a whale of a time, thank you, but I don't think I can face a turkey or a mince pie for at least another year. How about you, Doctor?
Oh, I had a very pleasant week, too, my boy. Parties, visitors, and a flattering number of Christmas messages to be answered.
Oh, say, you got a new pipe. Is that a Christmas present?
Yes, new pipe, new tobacco pouch, and a pound of my favorite tobacco. All of them sent to me from London by an old client and a friend of mine, Sir Ian Dunbar.
An old client, huh? Well, do you mean he was one of your patients, or was he someone that you and the great Sherlock Holmes helped?
The latter, Mr. Bartell. As a matter of fact, it was receiving this gift that reminded me of the story I've decided to tell you tonight. A story in which Sir Ian Dunbar played a prominent part.
And how did it begin?
The day before New Year's Eve in 1899, Sherlock Holmes and I sat in opposite corners of a first-class railway carriage as we sped towards Edinburgh in the Flying Scotsman.
What took you and Sherlock Holmes up there, Doctor?
It started off as a holiday visit, Mr. Bartell. My old friend Sir Walter Dunbar had asked Holmes and me to spend a few days with him at Dunbar Castle, about 20 miles outside Edinburgh. After we left King's Cross Station, Holmes, his sharp, eager face framed in his deerstalking cap, dipped into the bundle of fresh papers which he'd brought with him. We'd left Bedford far behind us before he thrust the last one of them under the seat, leaned across, and offered me his cigar case.
Care for a cigar, Watson?
No, thanks, awful. I'll stick to my pipe.
Flying Scotsman's living up to its name. We're going splendidly. Our present rate is 53.5 miles an hour.
Oh, I hadn't noticed the quarter-mile post.
Nor have I, but the telegraph posts on this line are 60 yards apart. With the aid of a watch, the calculation is a simple one. Watson, my dear fellow, we have several hours ahead of us. Now, tell me more about Sir Walter Dunbar. I have a feeling that he's in some kind of trouble, but you haven't wanted to talk about it.
Well, it's not exactly trouble, Holmes, but there's a strange problem that confronts the Dunbars. A problem that'll be settled at midnight tomorrow.
Oh, indeed. Night of New Year's Eve, eh?
Yes, exactly. But to really appreciate the story, I have to begin by telling you of the death of old Sir Thomas Dunbar.
The father of the present baronet, I suppose.
Yes, he was severely wounded at Waterloo, though he managed to last out long enough to get back to Dunbar Castle. The story goes that as he lay there on his deathbed, he told his wife of his plans for their unborn child.
Dinna grieve, lass. I fetched the baronetcy home from Waterloo. What if I fetched a mortal wound as well? Oh, hush, lass. I'm not afraid to die. All that niggles me is that I shall ne'er see the child you bear. Is Sir Wattle Scott no coming yet? Can he visit the deathbed of his old friend? Oh, who's there? Is that you, Sandy Murdoch?
Aye, Thomas. It's me.
Aye. I'm leaving an unborn son behind me when I die. Now, I don't trust women or children or banks for that matter. I put the best part of my wealth and gold in the big iron box you'll find under the bed. The money's there. Aye, and something else for a rainy day. You're to keep that box in trust for me, Sandy. You can turn it over to my boy on the New Year's Eve before his 21st birthday. And he'll be a man and wise enough to know how to use it. You understand, Sandy?
Aye, Thomas. But supposing your bairn's a girl.
Girl? I tell you, it'll be a boy. And we'll name him Walter after my good friend, Sir Walter Scott.
Very interesting story, Watson. And that child, of course, is the gentleman we are going to see now, Sir Walter Dunbar.
Exactly.
And the first baronet was a friend of Sir Walter Scott, while his son can boast of your acquaintance. Why, it's a family singularly rich in literary friendships.
That's not very funny, Holmes. To continue, I suppose you can guess what happened. Sir Thomas carefully drew up a document to specify the New Year's Eve before the baronet's 21st birthday. And the poor child was born on February the 29th. It was a leap year.
Oh, so poor Sir Walter is still waiting for his iron box full of gold.
Yes, he'll be 84 next year, and yet legally, with only one birthday every 4 years in the eyes of the law, he'll at last be 21.
A most amusing situation, though I'm afraid Sir Walter finds it far from entertaining. The lawyers must have been extremely scrupulous in abiding by the letter of the document.
Yes, old Sandy Murdoch is dead now, of course. But he, too, is a great-grandson, William Murdoch, who still handles the Dunbar estate. He'll be at the castle tonight to formally hand over the iron box.
I'm delighted you accepted the holiday invitation of Sir Walter. My dear fellow, I've needed a rest, but I've always loathed too strict a one. This situation may pose a nice little problem for me.
Problem?
Yes, I'm reasonably certain that the aged Sir Walter Dunbar will not get his iron box full of gold on this New Year's Eve either. But we shall see, old fellow. We shall see.
Dr. Watson, I'm glad to see you and Mr. Holmes here at the castle.
Thank you, my boy. Holmes, this is Ian Dunbar, Sir Walter's grandson.
How do you do, Mr. Dunbar?
I'm very proud to meet you, Mr. Holmes. I've heard a lot about you. Grandfather will be down in a few moments. Let's go into the library, shall we?
Well, I imagine Sir Walter's quite excited about tonight's ceremony, isn't he?
Wouldn't you be? If you'd waited 63 years too long for an inheritance.
Indeed, I should.
Thank the Lord I had the foresight to be born on the prosaic date of August the 21st.
In the event of your grandfather's death, you will be the next baronet, I take it.
Yes, Mr. Holmes. You see, my father was killed 2 months ago at Mafeking.
Yes, I read about it in the papers, my boy. I'm very sorry.
Thank you, Doctor. The opening of the box isn't going to be the only ceremony at midnight. Dorothy and I are announcing our engagement.
Dorothy?
Dorothy Small. She and her father are staying here, too.
My congratulations.
Yes, indeed, Ian. Indeed, mine, too.
Thank you. It's been quite a battle with her father, though. He's a businessman and isn't impressed with titles when they aren't accompanied by a suitable income. But when we told him about the inheritance, he relented and gave his consent. Here's Dorothy now. Dorothy, darling, I want you to meet 2 friends of mine, Mr. Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson.
How do you do?
Now, how do you do, Miss Small?
How are you, my dear? From what this young man's been telling us, I gather that congratulations are in order.
Thank you. I finally persuaded Father that Ian would make a worthy son-in-law. For a while, I was afraid we'd have to elope to Gretna Green, live in a cottage on bread and cheese and love, and brave the parental wrath, just as they do in the storybooks.
Oh, Sir Walter, there you are.
Watson, my dear boy. How are you? And this must be your friend Sherlock Holmes.
How do you do, Sir Walter?
Very well for a young nipper who'll be 21 at midnight. Gentlemen, may I introduce Mr. Herbert Small?
How do you do, sir? I believe that we have to congratulate you on the engagement of your daughter.
That was supposed to remain a secret until midnight. The Dunbar box was finally opened. Dinna be grouchy, Herbert. The children are in love, and I'm going to settle money on Ian. And it's New Year's Eve. Let's enter into the spirit of the occasion. Bring out the glasses, Ian. I've had some bottles of my special pride put out. It's the finest port in Scotland. The cream of Dunbar. Aye. My father laid the first bottle down the year before I was born. And a drink of the brew will surely warm the cockles of your heart.
My mouth's watering already, Sir Walter.
When is this lawyer fellow, young Murdoch, getting here? Oh, any moment, Herbert. As soon as he arrives, we'll have dinner, and then we'll be ready for the evening ceremonies.
He's bringing the famous iron box with him, Sir Walter?
If he doesn't, they won't get any dinner, Holmes. Ian, pass the glasses around, my boy. There you are, Murdoch.
Good evening, Sir Walter.
Oh, you've got the box with you, I see. Now the party's complete. Let me introduce you. Miss Small, her father, Mr. Small, my grandson Ian, you know. Mr. Sherlock Holmes, Dr. Watson.
How do you do, sir?
I'm sorry I'm late, Sir Walter. My train was delayed.
Oh, that's all right, Murdoch. You're here, and you brought the box. That's all that matters. Ian, Give our young lawyer a drink. Here, I'll help you pour it.
I must say that this is rather exciting, Holmes. The famous iron box with its inheritance of gold.
Yes, and from the size of the box, at a rough guess, I should estimate its cubic content in gold at around 5,000 pounds. Not a vast sum, perhaps, to a businessman like Mr. Small, but a windfall to an impecunious Scottish baronet.
Yes, that's what it is.
A strong young man, Mr. Murdoch.
How do you mean strong, Holmes?
A box that size full of golden sovereigns would weigh a considerable amount, and yet the lawyer carried it single-handed.
Now that we're all assembled, I'm going to propose a toast. Though it's still some hours off yet, let's drink to the new year. It means a lot to some of us. To 1900!
1900!
We should toast more than just 1900, Sir Walter. We should drink to the new century that's about to begin.
Good idea, Dorothy.
Oh, I'm afraid that wouldn't be quite appropriate, Miss Small. To be accurate, the 20th century won't begin until January the 1st, 1901, and not 1900.
Of course, that's it. Dorothy, I'm afraid your wedding can't take place for some time yet.
Father, what are you talking about?
I read an article in The Guardian the other day that said just the same thing as you, Dr. Watson. And what's more, it said something even more important. It said that 1900 is not a leap year. Oh, rubbish. Leap year comes every 4 years. There was one in 1896, then obviously 1900 is one.
I think Mr. Small may be right. What do you say, Mr. Holmes? Do you know?
Well, I hope no one would bring up this point, but it's the little problem I referred to on the train, my dear Watson.
Holmes, for heaven's sake, answer. Is 1900 a leap year or no?
I'm afraid it's not, Sir Walter.
No?
Because of a slight imbalance that would otherwise be produced in the calendar. Of the even century years, only those divisible by 400 are leap years. In other words, 1600 was a leap year, the year 2000 will be a leap year, but 1800 and 1900 are not leap years.
Then you have no birthday next year, Sir Walter, and I'm afraid I can't open the box tonight.
And the Dunbars won't get their inheritance.
And you, my dear, don't marry for a few more years. I won't allow you to marry a pauper.
Mr. Holmes, are you sure of your facts?
I'm very much afraid that I am, young man.
Oh, this is terrible. I cannot stand any more.
No, don't take it too bad, Mr. Walter. Here, drink this. That's it. After all, you only have to wait another 4 years.
Another 4 years? At my age, young man, at my age. Oh, no, I shall never live that long. Aye, what is it, Angus?
Dinner is prepared, Sir Walter. We can serve it as soon as you're ready, sir.
What a miserable meal, Holmes. Sir Walter's gone to his room, the young lovers are nearly in tears, and Small and the lawyer Murdoch seem to be positively gloating.
Yes, a most depressing atmosphere in which to welcome the new year. But let us at least make the best of it. I think I'll go and have a talk with Sir Walter. And you, my dear chap, why not try and cheer up the young folks? Some of your experiences in India may make them take their minds off their trouble.
Oh, it's quite an idea. I'll join you in the library. Call me if you want me, Holmes. Ah, there you are, my dears.
Hello, Dr. Watson.
All alone in front of the fire, eh?
I'm afraid we're not in very good spirits, sir.
Oh, nevertheless, I'll sit down here and join you if you don't mind. Misery loves company, you know.
You're very kind, Doctor.
Oh, not at all.
I was just trying to persuade Ian to elope with me. But he's being most ungallant. He won't even consider it.
How can I, darling? I've got under 200 pounds a year in my own right. How could we live on that? I was counting on the money the grandfather was going to give us to get me started.
Now, Miss Small, a little earlier you talked of Gretna Green and bread and cheese and love in a cottage. Yes, there's a lot to be said for it, you know.
Well, to be said for it, yes, Doctor. But have you ever tried it?
Not literally, my boy, but I may tell you that when Mary, my wife, and I were first married, I had very little money. In fact, my income was just about the sum that you mentioned. And we were very happy.
Ah, but you have a profession, Doctor. Look at me. I've been trained for nothing except to be Laird of Dunbar Castle. I can't support a wife on tradition.
But you're young, Ian. You can get some kind of position. I'm sure you
Yes,
can.
of course. As a matter of fact, I think that... Holmes, what is it? What's wrong?
There's devil's work afoot, Watson. Come with me, old fellow. And you, Mr. Dunbar.
Mr. Holmes, what's happened?
It's Sir Walter. I went to his room. It was in darkness, but in the moonlight I saw two figures struggling by the open casement. One of them was Sir Walter. As I entered, he disappeared from sight. His attacker had pushed him out of the window into the moat.
How dreadful.
The other angle away in the darkness. We must get lanterns and go out to the moat at once. Though I'm very much afraid, Mr. Dunbar, that your grandfather is beyond our help.
Dr. Watson will be back in just a second, so I'd just like to remind you that if you want to serve a wine over the holidays that you're sure the ladies will enjoy, serve Petri California Muscatel. Petri Muscatel is a golden wine with a wonderful flavor. The flavor of big, plump Muscat grapes. And you know what a flavor that is. I'm sure you'll find that Petri Muscatel is the favorite wine of all women, just as Petri Port is the favorite wine with men. And incidentally, if you're not sure which to get, Petri Muscatel or Petri Port, don't buy one, buy two. Get them both, and you'll be sure to please everyone. Now, to get back to our story, someone had pushed poor old Sir Walter out of his bedroom window and into the moat below. Isn't that right, Dr. Watson?
Yes, Mr. Bartell. Of course, we grabbed lanterns as fast as we could and rushed outside, but it was a hopeless task. The water was 8 or 10 feet deep, and it seemed obvious that the elderly Sir Walter wouldn't have a chance of saving himself. But we searched on, the flicker of bobbing lanterns and the scurrying figures in the frosty moonlight, forming a weird, fantastic
Angus, bring a lantern over here. Aye, sir. Can you see anything, Holmes? Nothing.
I don't see why your friend doesn't call the police, Dr. Watson. He's accomplishing nothing.
We thought there might be a chance of finding the old man alive, Mr. Small. He wants to avoid a scandal, if possible, for your sake, sir, as well as the Dunbars.
The scandal can't touch me or Dorothy over this. Her engagement was never announced, thank heaven.
That's a great pity, sir. I should think some new blood in your family would be a great improvement.
You're being confoundedly impertinent, Doctor.
And you'll be confoundedly heartless, sir. Well, Holmes, have you given up hope?
I'm afraid we'll never find him without dragnet and grappling hooks. Have to call the police. What time is it? Sir Ian, you know the time?
What did you call me, Mr. Holmes?
Sir Ian.
By Jove, yes. It does seem a bit premature, Holmes, but of course you're right. If your poor grandfather's dead, Mr. Dunbar, you're the baronet now.
And the time, Sir Ian?
It's 11:45, Mr. Holmes.
A quarter of an hour to the new year. Sir Ian, doesn't that fact suggest something to you?
Yes, it does. So I'm the new baronet, am I? Very well, then. There'll be no more talk of the police for 15 minutes. I want all of you to come back to the castle with me. As the last chime of midnight rings out, I shall have a statement to make. A statement that I want you all to hear.
What you brought us all back here for, Holmes? There's something very funny going on. I tell you, I don't like the look of it.
And I, Watson, like the look of it very much.
I wish you wouldn't be so dashed mysterious. What are you up to? You haven't taken a step yet towards finding the murderer.
Haven't I? And I wonder what causes the beads of perspiration on Mr. Small's brow.
Small? You mean that Small...
And I wonder what causes the singular look of apprehension on the face of Murdoch, the young lawyer. You remember, of course, on my remarking how easily he carried the large iron box.
Good Scott, yes. And it took a strong man to throw Sir Walter out of the window.
Watson, huh? The new year is approaching.
Ladies and gentlemen, in view of our recent tragedy, this is one New Year's Eve when none of us feels like song and jollity. But there still remains a ritual duty for me to perform. Mr. Murdoch, open the iron box, please.
But I can't do that. It was only to be opened for your grandfather.
No, Mr. Murdoch. The phrase was that it was to be opened on the New Year's Eve before the baronet's 21st birthday. I am now the baronet, and I shall be 21 next year on August 21st. Open the box, please, Mr. Murdoch.
Ian, darling, how frightfully clever of you.
Good lad. I hoped he'd think of it.
Sir Ian.
Murdoch, open that box.
Very well, Sir Ian. But I'm afraid you're in for something of a shock.
Great Scott, the box is empty.
Except for a sheet of notepaper in the bottom. What's the meaning of this, Murdoch?
Read that paper, Sir Ian, and you'll understand.
I owe you 4,000 sovereigns. And it's signed Alexander Murdoch, on behalf of Murdoch and Murdoch, lawyers. You'd better explain this.
It's the family skeleton, Sir Ian. That note is signed by my great-grandfather, the one that witnessed the original deed concerning the box. As soon as Sir Walter was born on that February the 29th, my great-grandfather realized the money wouldn't have to be produced for 84 years.
And so he stole it.
He borrowed it. He always intended to pay it back, but he was never able to. When he died, he told my father of his secret, and my father in turn told me. We've always planned to put back the money, Sir Ian, but we've never been able to.
This is daylight robbery. You should prosecute them, Ian. The firm's still in business. You can ruin them. You can sue them for every penny they have.
Mr. Small, you've already shown a marked aversion to my family. I suggest you allow me to handle their affairs.
Bravo, Ian.
How dare you, Dorothy? Go to your room.
No one's going to their room. No one's leaving here until the police arrive. I'm convinced that one of you murdered my grandfather tonight.
And if you ask me, it's obvious who that someone is.
Who, Dr. Watson?
You, Mr. Murdoch. You came here planning to kill poor old Sir Walter because you never intended to open that box. You thought that your secret would die with him.
That's a lie. I was going to tell him everything and then ask for time to pay the money. I didn't kill him.
Of course he didn't. There's your murderer. You yourself, Ian.
Father, what are you saying?
I'm saying that Ian's the murderer. He saw that the box wasn't going to be open for another 4 years. He realized out the money couldn't marry Dorothy, so he killed his grandfather and then ordered the box opened.
You're trying to cover yourself. You pushed grandfather out of that window tonight. You thought that if he died, the box would never be opened. So Dorothy couldn't marry me.
You young
Gentlemen, please.
Upon my soul, Holmes, you seem remarkably calm.
Do I, my dear Watson? I must say I'm absolutely fascinated by listening to three people accusing each other of murder, and each of them producing perfectly sound motives. It's a remarkable example of the dangers of reasoning from motive alone. We should profit by experience, Watson.
Mr. Holmes, how can you be so calm? There's a murderer in this
I
room.
suppose this game of charades is getting a little out of hand, Miss Small. Let's conclude it. You'd better come out now.
That tapestry, it's moving.
A happy new year to you all.
Grandfather. Sir Walter, oh, am I seeing a ghost?
Oh, Sir Walter, you're all right.
What kind of a game have you been playing?
It's a bunny game that Holmes and I invented. You might call it forcing the issue. I was determined to have the box open before the next 4 years were out, whilst I was still alive to look inside it. But the trickery of your family, Murdoch, has made me a very unhappy man.
Sir Walter, I shall pay back the money in a few years. I swear I will.
It'll be too late to do me any good, but I'll take care that Ian gets it. I've half a mind to prosecute you.
Grandfather, the money isn't important now that you're all right.
You were counting on it just the same, my boy, so that you could marry Dorothy. I know that.
She'll never marry a pauper. I won't allow it.
When I'm 21, you can't stop me, Father, and I am going to marry Ian.
Be quiet. Sir Walter, this is a very unsavory business. I think that you owe us an explanation of your behavior tonight.
You tell him, Holmes. I fancy a wee drop of cream of Dunbar. Watching you all search for my body in the moat has made me thirsty.
The explanation is a very simple one, ladies and gentlemen. When you arrived here tonight, Mr. Murdoch, I knew from the way you handled the box that it could not contain the sum of gold it was supposed to.
And so you suspected fraud and devised a plan to force the opening of the box.
Yes, and Sir Walter was an eager conspirator.
Of course I was. Ian is 21 next August. Supposing I had died after he came of age and before my next birthday, 4 years hence, the box would never have been opened.
And so we invented the fake murder story. By the way, Ian, I must congratulate you for grasping the possibilities of the situation so speedily. If you hadn't demanded the opening of the box, the Murdoch secret might still be a secret.
It was a clever plan, Holmes. It's too bad that it had to have such a miserable ending.
I'm not sure that we have finished with the matter. Mr. Murdoch.
Yes, Mr. Holmes?
You say that your family took £4,000 from that box?
Yes, Mr. Holmes.
Curious. I would have sworn from its size that it would hold closer to 5,000. And in your account of the legend, Watson, you told me that Sir Thomas Dunbar stated on his deathbed that he had put something else in the box.
Right.
Something for a rainy day, is that it? Mm-hmm. Did the Murdochs find that extra something?
No, Mr. Holmes. They found nothing but the gold.
Oh, that's very odd. I think I'll take a closer look at that box, if you don't mind.
Since this seems to be a night of telling secrets, I think you might as well know, Father, that if you don't give your consent, I shall elope with Ian.
Oh, bravo, my dear, bravo.
No such thing.
I admire your resolution, young lady, but I hardly think it will be necessary.
What do you mean, Holmes?
Permit me to show you all the treasure of the Dunbars.
What have you found, Holmes?
Something for a rainy day that old Sir Thomas spoke of. You see, since the cubic contents of the box obviously differed from my calculations, I deduced the existence of a false bottom. I was correct. And in that space, I found this.
Oh, it's a manuscript.
Quite so, the manuscript of a book. Look at the title page and see the author's name.
History of the Dunbar Family by Sir Walter Scott.
Oh, I was Scott. I think, Sir Walter, that an original and unpublished manuscript by your distinguished namesake will prove worth several times the gold that is missing from that box.
You've saved the day for us, Holmes, my boy. God bless you. Oh, this has been as strange a new year as ever I knew. But it's turned out to be a bonny one, thanks to you, Holmes. Well, fill up your glasses. We're going to drink a toast to the new year.
By Joe, yes, Sir Walter. This is really a happy occasion.
Then let's complete it by singing the traditional song of the season, Auld Lang Syne. And in this case, when we sing Should Old Acquaintance Be Forgot, I feel that in our hearts we should be thinking of Sir Walter Scott. Though he died over 60 years ago, he's made us all very happy here tonight.
Should old acquaintance be forgot and never on
Doctor, that turned out to be a very happy new year for all concerned.
Yes, that's one new year that I'll never forget.
Well, I sure hope you'll always remember this one, too.
Oh, just a second, my boy. That calls for a glass of port.
Fine.
Well, to a happy new year, my boy, for you and for our many friends listening in.
And to you, Doctor.
Oh, thanks, boy.
That's good. Doctor, this has indeed been a pleasant association for me.
Oh, I'm glad to hear it.
You're the best storyteller I've ever known, and the Petrie family makes the best wine I've ever tasted. I hope that, just as they've been making wine for generations in the past, the Petrie family will continue to make fine wine in the future.
And Mr. Bartell, I know that you'll always be here to tell us just how good that Petrie wine is.
Well, I hope so, Doctor. And I hope you'll always be right here beside me to tell another swell story about Mr. Holmes.
I hope so too, my boy.
Oh, and incidentally, Doctor, what new adventure are you planning to tell us next week?
Next week, Mr. Bartell, I'm going to tell you a weird story. It starts with a series of murders on Hampstead Heath and ends with a battle to the death in a burning waxworks. I call it the strange case of the murderer in wax.
Tonight's Sherlock Holmes adventure was written by Dennis Green and Anthony Boucher and was suggested by an incident in the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle story, The Silver Blaze. Music is by Dean Fossler. Mr. Rathbone appears through the courtesy of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, and Mr. Bruce through the courtesy of Universal Pictures, where they are now starring in the Sherlock Holmes series. Petrie Wine Company of San Francisco, California, invites you to tune in again next week, same time, same station. Sherlock Holmes comes to you from our Hollywood studio. This is Harry Bartell saying goodnight for the Petrie family. For a solid hour of exciting mystery dramas, listen every Monday on most of these same stations at 8 o'clock to Michael Shayne, followed immediately by Sherlock Holmes. This is the Mutual Broadcasting System.
I would like to thank Phyllis White for taking the time to tell us about her husband, Anthony Boucher, and also about Dennis Green, and those wonderful times, not so long ago, when Holmes and Watson were played by Rathbone and Bruce. The two episodes you have just heard are part of the new adventures of Sherlock Holmes, starring Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce, and are a 1988 copyrighted production of 221A Baker Street Associates. The Sherlock Holmes stories and the characters of Sherlock Holmes and Dr. John H. Watson were created by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and are used with the kind permission of Dame Jean Conan Doyle. This is Ben Wright. Won't you join me again sometime soon for two more new adventures of Sherlock Holmes? Thank you for listening.
A wonderful, riveting story with Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson in Edinburgh, Scotland. Next up, Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson find a body in a cave. It looks as though they died a long time ago, but Holmes suspects something else. This is the case of the out-of-date murder. Enjoy.
This episode from the life of Sherlock Holmes will be transmitted to our men and women overseas by shortwave and through the worldwide facilities of the Armed Forces Radio Service. Petri Wine brings you Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce in the new adventures of Sherlock Holmes. The Petri family, the family that took time to bring you good wine, invites you to listen to Dr. Watson tell us another exciting story about his old friend, that master detective, Sherlock Holmes. And we'd also like to tell you something you really ought to know. The fact that the one sure way to make good food taste better is to try that good food together with a glass of good Petri wine. Did you ever try Petri wine with dinner? No kidding, that's one bandwagon you sure want to hop on. Take, for instance, a deep red, hearty Petri California Burgundy. Wait till you taste that Petri Burgundy with, let's say, a delicious old-fashioned beef stew. Or maybe try a glass with spaghetti. I'm telling you, when you add the luscious flavor of that Petri Burgundy to the flavor of your favorite foods, you're really living. You're finding out for the first time what good eating really means, on the level. So better keep a bottle of that Petri Burgundy right on the dining room table. And never forget, the best friend a good meal ever had is a glass of Petri wine. And now for our weekly visit with the good Dr. Watson. May I come in, Doctor?
No, Mr. Bartell. You know me better than that. Of course you can come in. I'm expecting you. I always look forward to these Monday evenings together, you know.
Me too, Doctor. In fact, I always say this is the one doctor's appointment that never scares me.
That's very nice of you, my boy. Draw up your chair and make yourself comfortable.
Thanks. And what prescription do you have in mind for us tonight, Doctor?
Well, now, let me see. Take one measure of subterranean peril, one of aristocratic lady in distress, a sprinkling of assorted villains, a corpse or two, and a little more than a dash of Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. Shake the mixture well, and you have the case of the out-of-date murder.
Well, how did the adventure begin, Doctor?
Exactly enough. It was in September of 1900. I remember that Holmes and I went to Eastbourne for a much-needed rest. First couple of days we spent in soothing idleness. On the morning of the third day, Holmes, a dash of color back in his cheek and a hint of the old sparkle in his eye, suggested that we should go and call on his good friend Evan Whitnell, curator of a nearby museum. And so, just after lunch on that September day, found the two of us talking to Professor Evan Whitnell in his private office at the museum. It only seems yesterday that Holmes was saying...
Professor Whitnell, your recent discoveries in this part of England have made you world famous instead of just nationally famous. My congratulations.
Professor, I do wish you'd tell me about your discoveries.
Oh, with pleasure, Dr. Watson. Less than 2 months ago, I was excavating on the downlands in this neighborhood when I was fortunate enough to discover a number of underground caves. Caves saturated with a heavy deposit of lime that gave clear evidence of having the property of rapidly mummifying any flesh, human or animal, deposited in them.
Good gracious me, it's interesting. And what treasures have you unearthed, Professor?
Well, a number of mummified specimens of animals clearly belonging to bygone eras. My prized specimen is the body of a large wolfhound. The inscription on its collar identified the animal as having belonged to some local squire in the year 1748.
Amazing. I didn't know that limestone had such qualities of preservation.
Come in. Yes, Alan? What is it?
It's Lady Clavering, Professor. She asked me to tell you that she was in the museum.
Oh, yes. Sherlock here, will you, Alan?
Very good, sir.
Yes, I'm most anxious for you both to meet her, and she in turn is even more anxious to meet you. Now, I dined with her last night, and when I told her that you were coming here today, she insisted on meeting you.
Oh, Whitnell, you scoundrel. There's a twinkle in your eye. I suspect that Lady Clavering is here to consult me in my professional capacity, and that you engineered the meeting.
Well, perhaps I might have dropped a hint.
No, I warn you, Professor, Holmes can't become involved with another case. He's completely run down.
Well, don't worry, Doctor. All that Lady Clavering requires is a little advice.
Advice? Oh, that's a different matter altogether.
Yes, sir. I knew you wouldn't mind, Holmes. Helena, my dear, there you are. Come along in. Thank you, Alan. Allow me to introduce Lady Clavering, Mr. Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson.
How do you do, Lady
How are you,
Clavering?
gentlemen?
Now, here you are, my dear. Sit down here. And I may as well tell you, Helena, that our little plot has already been discovered.
Oh, dear. And I was just getting ready to exert all my feminine wiles in an attempt to persuade you to help me, Mr. Holmes.
Oh, I'm certain that he found you utterly irresistible, my dear Lady Clavering.
You flatter me, Doctor.
No, I mean it.
The professor tells me that you're in need of a little advice, Lady Clavering.
Yes, Mr. Holmes. I'll put my question simply. 5 years ago, my husband, Sir George Clavering, left me.
Left you? Gracious me, how stupid of him.
I haven't seen or heard tell of him since. I now wish to remarry. But of course I couldn't do that without having my husband declared legally dead.
My dear Lady Clavering, I can't help feeling that a lawyer is the proper man to consult, not a detective.
Perhaps you're suggesting that there was foul play in connection with your husband's disappearance.
Oh, no, Dr. Watson. The Claverings are a strange family, self-willed and headstrong. George and I were not happy together. I think he disappeared deliberately.
You reported his disappearance to the police, of course.
Oh, yes, Mr. Holmes. But they've never been able to trace him.
This kind of thing has happened in the family before, Holmes. Tell them about Sir Nigel, Helena.
Well, he was one of my husband's ancestors. He walked out one day in 1777 and was never seen again.
Extraordinary family, always disappearing.
George knew of the legend, and he often threatened to do the same thing himself.
But your problem, Lady Clavering, is not that of your husband's fate, but rather of your own freedom.
Yes, Mr. Holmes.
Well, I'm afraid my advice can be of little consolation to you. The law has specified a number of years that must elapse before anyone disappearing can be declared legally dead. I would suggest that you possess your soul in patience until that period has elapsed.
Oh, dear. And I was hoping you'd be able to think of some terribly clever way of getting round the law, Mr. Holmes.
Lady Clavering, sometimes perhaps my methods may be unorthodox, but I assure you that getting around the law, as you put it, is a procedure I do not indulge in.
Oh, dear me, now I've offended you, Mr. Holmes, and it's the last thing on earth I meant to do, I assure you.
My friend's a little touchy about matters concerning his professional honor, you know, Lady Clavering.
Oh, nonsense, my dear Watson. I'm not touchy and I'm not offended. And now, may I suggest we all examine the professor's latest treasures, and after that, perhaps he'll take us for a stroll on the downs. I'm most anxious to examine those lime pits of his.
The lime pits are about a mile from here. It's a nice walk across the cliff tops.
I'm sorry Lady Clavering didn't want to come with us. A charming woman, even though she did rub you up the wrong way.
A beautiful woman, Watson, but I must confess her charm eludes me. Her lack of concern about her husband's fate seemed completely unnatural.
Yeah, not if you'd known her husband, Sir George Clavering. He was a tyrant and a bully, both in his home life and in the village.
Hello? Who's this coming towards us?
It's Timmy. Daft Timmy, they call him in these parts. He isn't quite right in the head, poor fellow, but he's perfectly harmless. Has two passions in life, birds and bonfires. Hello, Timmy.
I've got something beautiful to show you. Oh, it's so beautiful.
Well, what is it, Timmy?
Look, it's in my cap. See? Oh, isn't it lovely?
It's a robin's egg.
I found it when I was bird nesting. Did you ever see such a blue egg?
It's a beauty, Timmy. Where did you find it, my boy?
Down by the lime pits. Oh, I'm going to build a lovely fire on the downs tonight. I'll let you come and watch it if you give me a shilling.
Now, you be careful, Timmy, or you'll be in trouble again.
Timmy doesn't get in trouble anymore now. Not since he had Sir George carried away.
Sir George Clavering used to whip Timmy when he found him on the land.
Timmy, tell me, how did you have Sir George, as you put it, carried away?
I told my birds about him. I told them how he used to beat poor Timmy, and they said they'd carry him off and drop him over the cliffs. and that's what they did, because he never came back again.
Oh, Lord, here comes Harry, Sir George's brother. Now there'll be trouble. Timmy, you'd better run.
No, Timmy can't run. He'll break his pretty blue egg.
Timmy, get off my land. If I catch you here again, I'll take my riding crop to you.
Timmy hasn't done anything.
Go on, be off with you, do you hear?
I'll tell my birds about you. That's what I'll do. Oh, don't forget my bonfire.
Infernal scoundrel. Hello, Whitnell.
Hello, Harry. Have you met Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson?
Oh, Sherlock Holmes, the professional nosy Parker, eh? Yes, Helena was just telling me about you. I'm very angry with her for talking to you about my brother. It's a private affair, and I intend it to remain one. You understand, Holmes?
Well, upon my soul.
The devil with your brother, sir, and with you. I'd advise you to remember that you're not addressing a half-witted villager who can't defend himself.
If you know what's good for you, you'll do what I say. Here, Chris.
Impertinent brute. He spoke to you as if you were a stable boy, Holmes.
Oh, really? He was quite refreshing. I'm reminded of an apposite quotation of my young friend James Elroy Flecker. Thine impudence hath a monstrous beauty, like unto the hindquarters of an elephant.
Yeah, he's almost as much disliked as his brother before him.
Tell me, does he succeed to the title when his brother is declared legally dead?
Oh, yes, and what's more, he's Helena's unofficial fiancé, worse luck.
I see. Personally, I'm beginning to get a trifle bored with the affairs of the Clavering family. Let's go on to the lime cave, shall we?
These caves are amazing. We must be 50 feet below the level of the ground, aren't we, Whitnell?
Well, more than that, I should say.
Rock formation is most unusual, a series of caves connected by a veritable honeycomb of tunneling.
Yes. I think I'll light the lantern now. It's getting darker in here, and I haven't explored this particular cave before. As I've had a wall cave in on me a couple of times, so you'd better watch where you're walking. There. Now we can see better. Let's go deeper, shall we? But do watch your step.
It's eerie down here, isn't it?
Hello. Oh, what's this in the crevice here?
Looks like a mummified bird of some kind.
It is a beautiful specimen.
Judging by its markings, a black streak here and bars of white in the tail, I'd say it was a peregrine.
That's exactly what it is, a falcon. Dating back a couple of 100 years, I should say. And in a perfect state of preservation. Oh, this is a treasure. Come on, let's explore deeper.
Seems to be another cave over here. If you'll hold the lantern up a little, I'll... Oh, I say. Good lordy. The whole wall's collapsed.
Watson, you're not hurt, are you?
No, Holmes. I'm all right.
Why, you've unearthed another cave, Dr. Watson. Let's go in. I think we can just manage to crawl through.
Great Scott, I don't believe my eyes.
Magnificent. Whitnell, this is a treasure indeed. A perfectly preserved body dressed in 18th century costume, powdered wig and all.
Yes, and there's no mistaking who it is. Look at that typical beat profile. It's a Clavering, and it isn't hard to identify which one.
You mean the one that Lady Helena told us about this afternoon?
Exactly. Without doubt, this is the body of Sir Nigel Clavering, who disappeared in 1777. Let's search his pockets. We might find some identification. Here's a snuff box of the period, and some coins.
Yes, the inscription of George III is still visible on them. Hello, here's his diary. This is unbelievable. What are you up to, Holmes?
I was examining the body, Watson. This man was murdered.
Murdered?
With this wound just above the heart. Obviously inflicted with a sharp instrument, probably a dagger. This is interesting. An entirely new experience for me. The opportunity of solving an unsuspected murder committed well over 100 years ago. Glance through that diary, Watson, will you, old chap? Let's see if the poor devil suspected his fate.
Well, hard to read. All the S's look like F's.
Peculiarity of the 18th century writing.
They are saying, I suppose it means saying, they are saying in the coffee houses that my brother, Harry, hath been coveting my wife.
But this is amazing, Holmes. See how history repeats itself. It's an exact parallel of the situation existing today. Harry is coveting his brother's wife, Helena, and Sir George has not been seen for 5 years.
What an extraordinary coincidence.
If it were one. As it is, it's one of the most ingenious frauds I've ever seen. The clothing appears authentic, so do the coins and the faded ink, the paper of the diary, and due to the peculiar mummification of the body, it would be almost impossible to say how long it's been here. Nevertheless, I am convinced that this is a recent corpse, and undoubtedly that of Sir George Clavering.
Well, what makes you so sure, Holmes?
Writing in the diary. 18th century used an S that looked like an F, it is true, but never at the end of a word. You will recall, Watson, that you were reading H-A-F
Have. For H-A-S. Has.
That's perfectly true, I was.
Well, that would be incorrect in genuine 18th century writing. No, obviously, this is an extremely clever attempt to disguise the comparatively recent murder of Sir George Clavering.
It's incredible, Holmes. And yet I believe you're right.
I'm sure of it.
Well, what are you going to do about it?
Do? You and I, old chap, will mount guard over the body. You, my dear Whitnall, if you don't mind, will be good enough to go and fetch the police.
Holmes.
Yes, old chap?
What do you suppose is keeping the police? Whitnall must have gone over an hour, and the lantern with him. Here we are, crouching in the dark in a smelly cave, 50 feet under the cliffs, with a mummified corpse.
Very true, Watson, but I don't. Uh-huh. Here comes the lantern.
It must be Whitnall and the police. Whitnall!
That you, Whitnall?
That lantern's blinding me. Is that you, Whitnall? Answer, can't you? Look out, Watson!
Dr. Watson's story will continue in just a second. And I'm going to take that second to ask you what you think of when I say good food. When you say good food to me, I can see myself really going down on a piece of fried chicken, but really fried, you know, crisp and sort of a light brown. And when I see that chicken, I sure want to see some Petri California Sauterne. Because believe me, Petri Sauterne is a white wine that's the wine for chicken. That Petri Sauterne has a delicate kind of flavor. Delicate like its pale gold color. But what a flavor, and what a wine. If you want a swell white wine, you certainly want Petri Sauterne. Try it and see. And now back to Dr. Watson and tonight's story, The Case of the Out-of-Date Murder. Well, Doctor, you certainly had me on the edge of my chair during the first part of the story.
Oh, I'm glad of that, my boy.
Say, what happened when Sherlock Holmes yelled out at you in the cave?
I was struck from behind with a spade and knocked out. A second later, the same thing happened to Holmes. You see, we were blinded by the lantern and couldn't protect ourselves. When we came to, we found we were at the bottom of a pit. The walls were narrow and vertical, and I saw no earthly way of our getting out of the trap. But as usual, Holmes had something up his sleeve. Oh, Lord, my head's throbbing.
Never mind that for the moment, old chap. Get the coat off in your shirt.
Oh,
Come on, off with it, old boy. Come on, off with it. I've already removed mine and tied them together.
Oh, what for?
Oh, dear me, that blow on your head must have been unusually severe. I'm trying to make a kind of rope, Watson, a rope to get us out of here.
Oh, what's the good of a rope unless there's someone on the ledge above us to hold us out? Perhaps you'll think you're performing the Indian rope trick.
My dear Watson, this is no time for your rather heavy-handed humor.
Why do you keep whistling like that? You've been doing it for the past 20 minutes.
I'm whistling for help.
Well, why not shout?
Whistle carries further.
Oh, dear. Who's going to hear that?
Daft Timmy, I hope. Remember, he was having a bonfire on the cliff tops tonight. My whistle is that of a nightingale, a song unheard in Sussex at this time of the year. If he does answer it, I'm sure it'll bring him down here.
Oh, dear. Well, I hope you're right. Seems to me that Whitnall and the police will never find us here. We shall mummify, just as the filthy murderer intended us to.
Courage, Watson, I'm sure... It's worked! It's Timmy! Cutting a burning log. We're down here, Timmy!
Nightingale, pretty birdie, what are you doing down there?
Timmy! I've tied these clothes together to make a rope. I'm going to throw them up. You ready? Catch!
Hey. Good. He's caught it.
Now, Timmy, lower it to us.
Oh, I shouldn't do this. They'll whip me.
No. Nobody will whip you, Timmy. And we both want to give you a shilling to come up and see your bonfire.
Oh, that's different. 2 shiny shillings. I'll lower the rope.
Here it comes. That's it.
All right, now then. You first. All right, Timmy, pull away.
Here you go.
Splendid.
I'm up, Holmes. Now lower it for you.
All right. I've got it. Look out now. Here I come.
Thank goodness we got out of that place all right.
I don't see the Nightingale. Oh, you must have him inside your coat. Well, never mind. We'll all go up to my bonfire and get warm. It's such a pretty bonfire. Did you ever see a finer bonfire?
Never, Timmy. It's lovely.
It's the most comforting sight I've seen for the last couple of hours.
Oh, just one thing's bad, though. Somebody tried to burn a book in my lovely fire. It must have been when I was off getting more wood. I found it when I came back, and I pulled it out of the fire and stamped on it. See, here it is.
Let's have a look. Hello, it's the diary that we found on the body in the lime pits.
Precisely, Watson. Now I begin to see daylight.
People shouldn't burn books. Books are nice. Books are like birds and bonfires. Oh, they're nice to be near. Oh, your nightingale must be cold. I'll get some more twigs to burn.
Well, now that fellow's gone away for a moment, I can see why we were attacked tonight. The murderer knew that we were going to the caves. He was afraid that his devilish plot wouldn't stand up under your scrutiny. So he watched us. When we discovered the body and sent Whitnell off for the police, he knew that he'd got to get rid of us.
And who do you think that somebody is, old fellow?
Well, that's easy. There's only one person strong enough to have knocked us both out and shifted our bodies. The dead Sir George's brother, Harry Clavering.
I think not, old fellow. Didn't you observe as we entered the caves that pickaxes and wheelbarrows were much in evidence?
Yes, that's right. They were, of course.
Strength was not required under the circumstances. We were extremely vulnerable in the darkness. Any man with a modicum of cunning could have disposed of us, or any woman, for that matter.
Good Lord, you're not suggesting that...
Watson! Oh, Whitnell! Why, thank heaven you're safe. I've had the police with me for the last hour, but we couldn't find you. You went where I left you.
True. Whitnell, I want you and the police to take me to Lady Clavering's house at once. After that, I wish to lodge information and make a charge of assault and possibly a charge of murder. And that, Lady Clavering, is the story of how we found your husband's body.
Horrible, Mr. Holmes. Horrible.
But who in thunder could have planned such a devilish plot? Yeah, why did the murderer attack you and Watson?
There, my dear Whitnell, you have the key to the murderer's identity. The man who so cunningly conceived and executed the murder of Sir George could never have bungled the job of disposing of Watson and myself unless he had meant to bungle it.
You mean he didn't mean to kill us?
Exactly. He merely wished us out of the way while the incriminating evidence was removed.
You mean the diary?
Of course I do. You will recall we found it partially burnt in Timmy's bonfire.
Then it was Timmy who...
No, my dear fellow. Surely it's obvious one person and only one knew that the diary was the key to the murderer's identity. The man who was present when we discovered it and detected the fraud.
Great Scott, Professor Whitnell.
Whitnell, you murdered my brother.
Evan, you? Oh, no.
I did it because I love you, Helena. All these years has been nothing in my life that meant anything but you.
How could you?
I thought that if George were out of the way, I could make you care for me. And when I realized that you loved Harry, I was mad with jealousy. And so I planned to conceal George's body forever. It was a clever plan. You said so yourself, Holmes. If it hadn't been for you, it would have worked.
Yes, it was diabolically clever, Whitnell, but I'm afraid that no amount of cleverness now can prevent you from paying for your crime. Sir George, I suggest that you instruct the police to come in. Our work is done.
Holmes, look there on the point. Timmy's bonfire is still burning away.
Yes. Timmy's a simple fellow with simple tastes.
Why are you so gloomy? You solved the case brilliantly.
My dear fellow, my faith in human nature has been sadly shaken, old chap. Evan Whitnell was a good friend and an old one. Hard to be instrumental in sending him to the gallows.
Well, he richly deserved it.
Yes, I know he did. That's quite true, but it's depressing just the same. Come on. Let's continue our walk home across the downs.
I heard Sir Harry offering you a fee. Did you take it?
No, I didn't, but I did accept his offer of an acre of land on the downs over there near the Abbey ruins. You can see them silhouetted against the sky.
An acre of land? What on earth would you do with that?
Well, when I retire, and I shall retire soon, I've often thought of bee farming. This would be a heavenly spot for such a venture.
Well, I can't imagine you as a beekeeper.
Oh, why not? After a life spent unraveling the tangled affairs of human beings, it would be soothing in the twilight of one's days to study the exact and predictable behavior of bees. Singing masons, building roofs of gold. Ah, well. One day, perhaps. One day.
Well, Doctor, that was a swell story. You know, I'm sure glad we get together like this once a week.
Oh, thank you very much. Next week, why not come over a little earlier for dinner?
Oh, no, I wouldn't think of having you go through all that trouble.
Oh, well, of course, if you feel that way.
Well, say, aren't you going to coax me?
Well, to tell you the truth, I knew I wouldn't have to coax you. Mr. Bartell, I was just going to show you the 2 thick steaks that I've got frozen in my refrigerator.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. I'll also put aside a bottle of Petri Burgundy.
Well, in which case, I'll bring along a very hearty appetite. If you pick the steak, I know it's good, and when it's Petri wine, you know that's got to be good, too. Because the Petri family has been making fine wine for generations. They've owned and operated the Petri business ever since its inception, way back in the 1800s. During all that time, they've sure learned plenty about the fine art of turning luscious grapes into clear, fragrant, delicious wine. And they've been able to take this experience and hand it on down from father to son, from father to son. That's why, when you want a wine for any occasion, you can't go wrong with a Petri wine. Because Petri took time to bring you good wine. Now, Dr. Watson, what story do you have lined up for us next week?
Well, now, let me see. Next week, Mr. Bartell, I'm going to tell you an adventure that occurred to Holmes and me in the shadowy depths of the Limehouse district in London. It's a strange tale of death and terror. I call the story The Eyes of Mr. Layton.
Well, Doctor, we'll be sure not to miss it. And meanwhile, don't you forget you promised to contribute to the National War Fund.
National War Fund, of course, Mr. Bartell. It's a must.
The money you give to your war fund not only helps the men and women in our armed forces, and it not only helps our allies, but that money goes to work right in your own community, helping make possible many relief and welfare agencies in your own hometown. So let's all be generous in victory. Give to your community war fund. Tonight's Sherlock Holmes adventure is written by Dennis Green and Anthony Boucher and is based on an incident in the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle story, The Adventure of Wisteria Lodge. Mr. Rathbone appears through the courtesy of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, and Mr. Bruce through the courtesy of Universal Pictures, where they are now starring in the Sherlock Holmes series. The Petri Wine Company of San Francisco, California, invites you to tune in again next week, same time, same station.
Oh, the Petri family took the time to bring you such good wine. So when you eat and when you cook, remember Petri wine.
To make good food taste better, remember...
Petri wine.
This is Harry Bartell saying goodnight for the Petri family. Sherlock Holmes comes to you from our Hollywood studios. This is the Mutual Broadcasting System.
Sir Arthur Conan Doyle never revealed how Holmes ended up with a farm on the Sussex Downs, but it was a nice little addition to the original story. And Sherlock Holmes aficionados reveled in this edition when it was first broadcast in 1945. I've hoped you'd enjoyed these 3 stories with Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce as Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. Till next time, this is Boomer Rocks.